So many people have been thinking hard about what we think we are going to hope we could do. I want to qualify everything I'm about to say with the word hope for, planned, possibility, sort of the caveats, right? Because we've all had to deal with ups and downs of plans, of course, over this last year. So I'm going to talk about first. We have a terrific committee, actually two committees that have formed to help us talk about reopening. One of them is focused on the actual, literally infrastructure stuff. That's Bill Churchill and Natasha Marcord, who are both on the board. And you'll hear a little bit more about that in a second. And another, which only just formed, is the reopening task force. Mindful, we haven't closed, right? But the building has been closed. So it's the reopening task force. And we've been meeting as well. There's also a lot in our denomination that congregations and leaders have been thinking a lot about all of this stuff too, as you can well imagine. And it sort of mirrors and matches what schools are up to. So, so first off, these are the hoped for plans. One is the values that we are using to guide us are that we will always find a way to make it accessible for everyone to participate. That's whether you're there in person or there remotely. And that particular point is going to be in place no later than September, assuming our plans go forward. So we expect, we being myself, the board, and the reopening task force, to remain on Zoom worship, virtual worship, through the end of this church year, which ends in June. But then in the summertime, we are planning, we've already actually rented a tent that we can put outside in the parking lot, portion of the parking lot. And that's going to allow us to do summer services outside. And the current thinking is that people will sign up to go to that. And we'll have, like we've always done in summer, either guest ministers and our worship associates and lay leaders lead that. And hopefully have access to the building to use the restrooms and et cetera, et cetera. There will be sound. We don't know. We don't actually think that we can do live streaming of that because of the technology, but maybe. Over the summer, though, the reopening task force is going to be looking ahead to what it's going to be like for us to offer hybrid worship beginning in September. We as a community, I guess I will just say this, cannot expect to say a person needs to be vaccinated in order to be a member of the church. That's not something that we're going to do. So we have to assume that, people are not vaccinated. And we also know that kids most likely won't be vaccinated till 2022, I think is what I've heard. So what that means is we're going to have to sort of do hybrid stuff in the fall. And we're going to be looking at a number of, metrics and what have you to help inform those decisions. But what hybrid could look like, again, these are all just imaginations and sort of plans, is that we have a limited number of spots that are available for the sanctuary, depending on what the state guidelines are and the town guidelines and the health department. But also we will be able to live stream all the services onto Zoom while they're happening, which we're going to do forever. That's never going to go away. In other words, we're forevermore a hybrid church. Okay? And we're doing that because we know that there are many people who can't be with us because they're too far away or, any number of reasons. So that's actually been a really good thing. The other thing that we're doing that Bill Churchill and Natasha have been working on hard, very hard, is to plan for circulated air throughout the whole building, which we currently do not have a way of doing. And so this is all some of my most interesting and hopeful meetings have been about HVAC work and what it's going to look like in order for us to be able to make that stuff possible, so that we can get circulated air in, which we all have heard, like schools need to do it, all kind of workplaces need to do it. But the building is, the old part of the building is so old, right, that's really hard to do. And so we're going to try to, and we're looking at the whole building because we have, many different spaces, all right? We're also looking at questions of accessibility, which is, and you'll hear more about why this comes into the stewardship in a second, but accessibility includes hearing accessibility, because our system has been really not working well for those who have hearing impairment of any kind. We're looking at pulpit accessibility, so for those who are differently abled and cannot climb up into the pulpit to do that. Looking at fixing the elevator, which has been perpetually not working well. And the last thing that I want to talk about is that we're looking at providing outdoor spaces for outside worship. We're calling it outdoor sanctuary, which is something we've been wanting to do for a long time. So all this is to say that back in, I think, January, the board, we were meeting our regular meeting, and we started thinking about all these needs, everybody, to be able to get us to come back. And we realized that we actually needed some investment above and beyond the annual campaign to help us pay for all of these things. And then just in the nick of time, of course, the steeple began to leak precipitously, and rained down plaster and water into the choir loft. So this week, you're going to get a mailing, and there's something really cool inside. So I really do encourage you to open it. The mailing is going to talk about two things. The whole thing is called the Welcome Home Campaign, okay? And it's going to invite an annual pledge, which all of us, your pledges pay for the whole operating budget, or a big portion of the operating budget, personnel, all that stuff. That is very important. I want to put that in the center of what we're needing to do, because we can't be welcomed home if we don't have the resources to pay for all the things that happen now. So that's going to be included in the mailing you receive. In addition, we're going to be doing a capital campaign. And that number is $300,000 to pay for all the things that I just described. Fixing the steeple, which is going to happen in actually a number of weeks. You're going to drive by, you'll see scaffolding launching up the steeple. HVAC work, which is going to happen over the summer. Live streaming camera, internet stuff over the summer. Outdoor sanctuary work being planned for, and accessibility stuff being planned for, though you're not going to walk in and see a whole new pulpit, for example. We're going to need to get more information about that. This campaign will run for, Kathleen, can you do 3 years? Thank you. So in other words, like if I wanted to pledge $1,000 to the campaign, if Karen and I did, we would have 3 years to pay that off, all right? So it's not, because we want to name this really importantly, and Kathleen mentioned this. We are a diverse community, not in all kinds of ways, but economically, we are a diverse community. We have all kinds of different capacities financially. And then also, this pandemic has affected us all kinds of different ways. Some of us have been laid off. Some of us have saved a lot of money because we haven't traveled. Some of them has investments and they've done phenomenally well. So it's all across the board. We want everyone who is able to feel like you are helping us, because you are, to welcome us back to the sanctuary, to our spaces and our places and our people and our purpose. Emily or Kathleen, is there anything that I have missed that you want to make sure that gets said? And again, Kathleen is running the capital campaign and the Welcome Home campaign this year. Kathleen?
Thank you, Nathan. You did a really great job covering really the entire scope of what we're trying to achieve with the capital campaign. And this is different from typical years where it's just the annual fund campaign. This time, as Nathan explained, we've got a capital campaign, which means we need to raise $300,000. But there's time to fulfill your pledges on the capital campaign, 3 years. But the expenses are here and now, and we need to get to work on fixing the steeple and putting in place the improvements for accessibility and getting to work on the garden. But it will take time, and particularly with the accessibility issues, that's something that we want to be in dialogue with all of you. So we see this as something that we want to get done over 3 years. For many of you, you may not have been through a capital campaign before, and that also is different. The last time we had a significant capital campaign was around 08, 09, and that was the DREAM campaign. We raised over $1 million when no one thought we could, when we did I forget what it's called, a viability study. No one thought we could do it, but we did, because there are people in our community, all of us, who want to be able to gather together and to feel that great gift of community. There was a small add-on capital campaign for $400,000, I believe in 2010, 2011. So it's been 10 years since we have come to you all and to say there are some expenses that are not typical and we need your help and support. So that's one thing. And then two, there is the annual fund campaign. And I don't, would it be okay to bring up the exhibits so that people can see?
Sure.
Okay.
Who doesn't like exhibits?
Probably a lot of people. Let's see. Now I have to find it. Bear with me.
Here, I can do it.
No, you can't. Oh, I can. Sorry.
Technology.
Wait. There we go. Sorry, I'm not as practiced in doing this. All right, so take a look. Here is the $300,000 amount and the breakdown. Steeple is going to cost about $165,000. So that's the biggest expense. The other items, you can see the tabulation for those. I do want to highlight at the bottom, it mentions reserves. So this is a $300,000 campaign. It could have been much bigger, but we have been disciplined with our finances so that we can take close to $30,000 from the Steeple Reserve. And we also have funds available in the Capital Reserve to help cover some of these costs. That will still leave us with $100,000 in the Capital Reserve, which I think is important because these are expenses that we need to do now in order for all of us to return to the sanctuary and feel comfortable and safe. But we know that down the road, there are going to be some other big expenses like the roof. So there is still money available, and we've got a full picture of the big expenses for what lies ahead. A little more detail here, but what I want to jump to is to also give you a snapshot on the annual fund campaign. This is that piece where it is our opportunity to come together as a community with our pledges to meet the expenses of our operations on an annual basis. And what I think you see here, this is a snapshot of this year's fiscal year, so through June of this year. Two pie charts. On the left, we have all our sources of income. On the right, all our sources of our expenses. Sorry, not sources, but all of our expenses. What is obvious in looking at these two pie charts is that our pledge income is our largest source of income, and our personnel is our largest expense. I think in what I'm not particularly fond of with these charts, although I do think they give you a good snapshot, is that what's less obvious is that all the things that we just heard about in this wonderful service, the people, the places, and the purposes, those, you see that on the right-hand pie chart, but they look like little slices of the pie. And it's everything that we love about being in community. I think that the reality is, which you can't see here in an overt way, is that it takes people our superheroes in our ministers and the staff who create an environment on the inside, on the outside, for us to worship and be in community. And in order to get a better appreciation of that, you need to look at who our ministers and the staff, what they are devoted to, the areas that hit our hearts and minds and our spirit, the worship leadership, the things that are needed to sustain our community, faith formation, service, justice, and public ministry, and pastoral care. These are all great things that are difficult to quantify, but we know with all the things that we've talked about today, that this is what is important to us, and we need to be able to sustain that. The challenge in looking back at the very simple snapshot is that there's a gap, and we need to mind the gap. Our pledge income, when you look at our biggest source of income, which comes from our pledges, and our biggest expense, personnel, we need to ensure that our pledges can cover our people. And right now, in the overall picture, we have a gap. It's about $50,000. And what our challenge is this year, as we ask you all to think about what your pledge is going to be, is that we need to close that gap. We need to make sure that we can sustain the community that we love and cherish so much. So it's always great to look at visual exhibits, but what this is all about is looking deep in your hearts as well as your pocketbook and thinking about what can I contribute to make our community, to own the responsibility that we have to make us whole.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I also just want to thank everybody who is able to stay on today to learn more about this, because the reality is that many people just don't know where the money that each of you pledge goes to. What does it do, right? Let me just say one more thing. Probably not one more thing, because it's me. Pledges for your annual campaign do not begin until July 1st. So that means if I pledge $1,000, I'm pledging to pay it off between July 1st of 21 and June 30th of 2022. Okay, that's how it works. But you're going to fill out your card that you're going to get in the mail on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. That's going to have something very cool in it. So don't put it in the recycling box, please. You're going to fill out that card now, but that pledge does not start until July. That's for the annual campaign. The capital campaign, you have, again, 3 years to pay it off. And whether you can pay it all off at once, that's awesome. Or you can, just plan your stuff out. So it's all about timing. So the exciting thing is the next time you drive, not the next time, but you're going to be driving past church, and you will see probably sometime in April, scaffolding going up and work happening there for a couple months. And that is all to fix the leaky steeple and repaint it and put beautiful gold colored paint, not actual gold, though that was an option, onto the numbers of the clock and get that place buttoned up. And the awesome news is that all of us in the community at this particular moment in time now can say we finally fixed the steeple at First Parish in Sherburne that has leaked forever. So people are asking just if you have any final questions, the last thing we're going to do. So Jenny Bro asked about payment plan for the 3 years. Yes, there is a new account you'll see on Realm. If you have a Realm account, you go in and you can set up automatic payments that way. Is there a percentage in pledge increase based on 2020 pledges that would cover the gap? We're looking for those that can, a 5% increase. If all of us did that, a gap would be gone. The gap would be gone. Is that correct, Kathleen? Am I correct in my math?
Well, we're getting there. Yes, if absolutely everybody did at 5%, we should get there.
Right.
But we'll be continually getting you information, and about the numbers and ways to think about your pledge. On April 11th, there is going to be a Zoom, our Welcome Home gathering. It's more than just what you're hearing today. We've got some fun things in store for you. That will be from 5 o'clock to 5:45. And during that, we'll crunch the numbers a bit more and try to make them more relatable, so it will help you make that very important decision.
Any other questions here as we finish up? There'll be opportunities for all of you to participate in a larger group or smaller groups over the coming month. And our only, I guess we just, again, I just want to keep saying thank you on behalf of the community. As one of the people that is charged with the responsibility of helping to sustain us, the opportunity to talk about how our finances convey our values can seem like sometimes a, I don't know, an uncomfortable thing. But I actually look to it as an exciting opportunity to help support what's all that has happened this last year, but even more so, what can happen into the next year. Okay, this is my for real last thing. Emily Bruce, who has just been has done amazing work this whole 2 years, only got Emily 4 months in person before 5 months, the terrible I want to use a curse word, but I can't. And so I've promised, Emily's still trying to figure out what's next for her, but when we're back in person, that Emily will be fated. If we have to fly you from someplace far away, we will do that and fate you and give you the round of not virtual applause that you so deserve through all of this. Okay, so that's got nothing to do with anything else, but I need to say that. All right, friends. Well, everybody, thanks for sticking on extra long today to hear more about our hopes for the summer and the fall. Questions about this stuff, email myself, Kathleen Gaffney. Kathleen, maybe you throw your email into the chat box, please, before we finish up. And Emily, and we indeed will miss Emily very, very much. All right, friends, go enjoy your day, the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you on Easter Sunday, if not before.